Welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Rob O'Day, and we are on location in Revelstoke with Logan Williams, a local action film editor, musician, and producer. How are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for coming, Rob.
Thanks for having me. Let's dive into your story right away. So,
yeah.
Where are you from?
I grew up in a little town called Newmarket, Ontario, picking up instruments as a kid and getting kind of involved with that. My dad comes from a musical family, so I kind of got introduced to that at a young age. But when I turned 17, I joined my high school's mountain bike race club, their XC team or whatever, and within probably like 2 months, I was hooked super, super fast, and then spent the summer after senior year just mountain biking every day. And I was supposed to go to University of Waterloo and do the engineer thing and go that route, and that's kind of what I thought was sort of my only option, and that's what I wanted to do. But after sort of picking up biking, I was like, nope, I think that's cooler. So I bought a plane ticket and moved out to Banff, Alberta on my 18th birthday. I moved out there with the drummer for my high school band. His name's Matt Longstaff. We moved out together, and we'd play music occasionally and hang out, and that was sort of my gap year. I deferred my acceptance to Waterloo, and by the time January rolled around, I was like, no, there's no going back. This is the spot. So I reapplied and went to school in Kelowna for engineering for a couple years. That's sort of where I picked up film. I had been interested in GoPros and all the little things you get into when you're starting to do action sports, you know, because you want to capture it. But within my first month of my first semester of university, I had a pretty heinous mountain bike crash on a dirt jump that me and my friend were building, and I broke both my arms. What I thought was like the most disastrous thing that could have happened ended up being a massive blessing, because I still wanted to be involved in the scene and still doing the biking thing, but without being able to bike, the next best thing was filming. So I just got head over heels in that. Yeah, within a year, that was like my entire life. I was just obsessed, you know? You go out and you have this vision for what you want to get, and you get something and you come home, you tinker with it and try to put it together in the most interesting way. And that's still kind of at the core of everything I do. You know, it's just like pushing yourself there. It seems like you can kind of just keep going. So yeah, after like 2.5 years of engineering, the summer before my last semester, I decided to go full freelance in the film world and just try to get as many contracts as possible and eat a lot of rice and hang out and film mountain biking, and it worked, shockingly. And then I went back to school for one more semester, and I was having to turn down film work, and I didn't feel my heart was in it anymore. And I was like, this is dumb. Let's just go do what I know I want to do. So I moved up here to Revelstoke. I had done a summer here in between semesters a couple years prior, and I knew it was the place to be. And yeah, just sort of hit the ground running and have been filming as a full-time job ever since, with skiing and mountain biking and snowboarding and all that stuff. And now I have this beautiful studio space as of late, and I'm able to elaborate on my sort of music production as well, which is really awesome. I've been doing that since high school. So the beauty of that is I can soundtrack all my own films now, which is beautiful. I can write and compose all the music and tweak things as I go, and just, it's another hand in the pie, you know? You can be as specific as you possibly want, and when you go to show it to someone, being able to be like, that is like as close as you can get to being inside my head, you know? Like from start to finish, that's how I see the world and hear it, which is pretty cool. You really need to be in touch with what you're trying to capture if you want it to work at all, which is the same thing with music. You can't really fake being a punk artist, for example. You really need to understand the ethos of punk to produce anything that's really worth having any attention on it, right? And that's the same thing in the action sports universe. All of my favorite mountain bike filmmakers are amazing mountain bikers, and they ride all the time, and they're out digging trails, and they're like, that's the center of their being, right? So like there's no fluff, and when you watch something they've created, it feels exactly like what it feels like to do the thing, you know? And I think there's a lot of similarities between music and film in that regard. Like you can't fake it. Space now, man. It's gonna carry on forever. I think there's a quality to it that makes it powerful to know that you're creating something that will never know who it's going to end up resonating with. I think that's the most powerful thing to me. If you're creating something that genuinely speaks to you and it's authentic and it's your vision, if it speaks to one person, it could change their life.
You were going to school for engineering too.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like you have to be an intelligent person and mathematically accurate and be very good with numbers to be able to be an engineer.
For sure.
You were meant to create your engineer art.
Yeah.
And engineer what you see in your head into film and transcend to pass that on.
I've taken lots of inspiration from other people too. Scott Bell, he's another filmmaker on the island. He made this video probably 4 years ago on how to make a cable cam. It's an incremental thing, right? It's not like I just went from not having anything to being like, and now I welded this thing together and I have this braking system.
You have to break it down.
But that is engineering too. It's this incremental process. Yeah, whenever I talk to people about going from engineering into filmmaking, I like to say that being a filmmaker it's like being an engineer, but you're not creating, other people aren't creating problems for you, you're creating the problems for yourself. And I think we talked about this earlier, but you get to decide exactly how elaborate you want the problem to be, and that normally dictates how elaborate your solution needs to be as well, right?
That's the same thing with music.
Same thing with music.
Yeah, like some of my favorite songs in history have a slight out of tune note.
Dude,
or
yeah.
things like that. And it's like perfectionism has, I think, destroyed creativity. Especially nowadays with like the social media having to be constantly feeding out content, that it's really hard to to make something that's a masterpiece nowadays versus just something that's popular.
I think making a masterpiece is just making something that is like unapologetically true to yourself, regardless of what other standards people have put it up against, you know? Like, in mountain biking, it's really easy to get carried away trying to be the coolest guy in the room. You know, you'll see someone else doing something really interesting or really cool, or even just really provocative, and you're like, damn, I want to do something like that. But through the process, you're like, no, I can do my own thing. It can be fully on its own, and that's what made them doing that cool in the first place. It wasn't like anyone was doing that at the time. But I think that's what you need to do. There's no objective truth to music, and there's no objective truth to film. You just need to make something that resonates with you, and hope to God that you have good taste and that it's gonna click with someone as well.
Yeah.
But even then, the audience comes last. You need to make sure that what you're making is real.
In a world that's like things are coming at you, it's nice to be able to take a minute and just step back, look at the whole picture, and like capture something that's just magic.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Even like the show of just genuine conversations about artists, because if you can get more than one artist to think, and then you have multiple ideas firing, and it's just like that goes out to the universe, and through the universe itself will maybe plant the seed into somebody who becomes the next best filmmaker we don't even know about. So
yeah, it's sort of this like self-fulfilling prophecy thing. Yeah, it's beautiful. I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't have film in my life.
And it's crazy creating a business at home where you live off of it and get to enjoy it and are constantly thinking of the future, as where with film you're really in the present, and you have to be in the present. You're not going to capture those moments.
You're not
right?
going to get something that's real. It's definitely like, for example, back in like January, I like cut social media completely out of my life. So I don't have Instagram anymore. I don't have Facebook anymore.
Has that been beneficial
Dude,
for your creativity?
For 1,000%. There is like, you can do whatever you want in your life to make your life healthier or better if you're still using social media. It's like that comparative bug will always be there. And yeah, I look at like sort of the trajectory I've been on, like I think that has to be the correlating factor, because literally since then, like I've started a band, committed to my film career like a lot more professionally, started a studio, almost done recording an album, almost done soundtracking my first like full-length project, doing all these different things, and I think it's because I'm just not spending any time worrying about what other people think, you know, because that's just like the killer.
Do you find it's hard to, because you're stepping away from social media to be creative, is it harder to market yourself because you're not online?
I couldn't have done it at the beginning. I have like sort of a steady enough stream of returning clients now that people are generally reaching out to me, and if they're not, then I'm able to sort of occupy my time with my own projects that I just look at as like a personal investment.
Does it go onto a website or YouTube?
Yeah, it goes on YouTube for sure. Although, it's funny you mentioned that. I am playing around with the idea of doing physical art installations as well. I look at film, and it'd be interesting to make a film and have it attached with just either you can only watch it on a TV in this location, or you have to go scan a QR code to do it or something, making it a bit more like intentional, you know, like you have to sort of search it out. I think there's some interesting stuff you could do with that, but all of my big projects I like to get on YouTube at the end of the day for sure. Once we've done like theater tours and premieres and all that stuff, which are my favorite part of any project, if you get to see it on a theater screen, man, it's always It's always cool. You see things you didn't even see while you're editing it. You're like, oh, look
At the end of the day, that's the hardest thing as a filmmaker is, and a musician, an artist, is when is a project done?
Dude, that's massive. I love hearing you talk about when you're hitting the right song with the right part, because that is for sure the hardest quality of any film project. Like, for sure. And I have my own way of sort of looking at it. I call it clip resonance. If like it just needs to resonate, right? Like if your song's hitting like a certain way, you could probably assign a frequency to that. And if a clip is hitting a certain way, I don't know how you'd assign a frequency to that, but I bet that if you were able to and you were to compare them when it's really working, I feel like there needs to be some sort of scientific explanation for why that's happening, you know? Because some stuff just works, and you're like, damn, I don't know why, but, and it's also subjective, you know? Like your personal experience, the way you've lived your life was gonna dictate how you consume that media as well. But I do think there are some things that objectively work, and it's like, damn, like they couldn't have chosen a better song for that part, and like having it cut there works so well. And like between clips there's resonance too at your cut lines, right? Like even beyond just like making sure your subject's in sort of a similar spot, like you can get really techie with it, and
you can get so lost
so
in it.
geeky. And
I love the way you say clip resonance, because like I can understand what you mean. That's what makes good directors and good filmmakers and producers is like you can't fake film.
There is sort of this trend happening, especially I see it a lot within the action sports world these days, but it just seems like the pacing of edits is getting faster and faster, and people are really hesitant to hold on to shots and let them breathe. And I think there is parts of that are influenced by social media and wanting to make sure that you're grabbing people's attention, you know? Like, it's hard to find a mountain bike edit these days that doesn't do, I hate this word, but they call it like a sizzle reel before like the actual part starts, and they'll just play
show the hit.
Play milliseconds of the 15 sickest hits immediately before a super fast cut, and then start the video, and it's like, it seems like such an obvious play to the audience, you know? And as an artist, it hurts a little bit, because it's like you felt obliged to do that a little bit, you know? Like you're like, no, wait, stay, and now watch, you know? Which is, I try to avoid it. And it also seems like people are starting to really subscribe to like the Michael Bay school of editing these days, where it's just like going the whole time super hard. And some of my favorite bike films from the last couple of years, like some of the segments are literally a handful of shots, and they're just held for the perfect amount of time, and they're never super long segments, and it's just like it said what it needed to say, and then it moved on, you know? And it keeps going. And I feel like if you're aware of that, you can make a lot more of a statement. If you're not in a rush to make sure that no one leaves your video too early. If you're just there doing your thing, saying what you need to say, I think the right people are going to stick around.
I like to think of it as like with action sports and like skate videos, snowboarding videos, biking videos, you have to have that build up. It's kind of like EDM. You got to have that rise and fall and that tension release, because you can't just like bang or shot. Like that means there's no like
world building.
There's no dynamics to the actual segment, because like some of my favorite shots are, like you said, are like either drone shots or like follow cams that are really long shots, because it's the full ride. Do you ever get hit to a point when you're editing, and like you said, you get to that point when you're just like, it's not where I want just the clips in different ways, and see if it inspires?
I try not to as much anymore. I'm normally like pretty intentional and a lot more sure-footed when I edit these days. Like if I'm sitting down to edit, there is a core idea that'll propel it sort of the whole way through, and it generally, for the most part, works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I try to avoid that. But man, yeah, like especially in the first couple of years, I would re-edit a video start to finish probably 3 or 4 times before I'd release it, to like make sure that I had gotten it as good as I could have possibly gotten it. Like fully changing songs, doing whatever, changing your color grade, redoing all the sound design, whatever it took, you know? But being self-aware and knowing if you've got more in the tank is really important as an editor, to be like, all right, well, like this kind of works, but it's, what else can I say with this, you know? And you can also go too far with that too. Like you can totally shoot yourself in the foot and get into like pretentious territory and just turn yourself into an asshat, trying to do too much with too little, you know? But I try to avoid that.
When it comes to filming, and I've done filming where it's like snowboarding and skateboarding, so you're on the board as well and your hands are free. But when you're riding a bike, how are you actually doing the follow? Because I know you're not using a GoPro because you want like the highest quality.
So I'm never doing like follow cams necessarily on a bike. It's not like I'm biking with one hand.
So you're
like
finding angles that you're wanting.
You're finding angles that you want, but then, so that's also the whole reason behind designing this cable cam system that I use as well, because that is as close as you can get to riding a bike with your friends.
I wonder if you could build like a back
You can't. So
rig.
Scott Secco,
Okay.
he's got this insane back rig he used in a project last year. I think it was it's like your Tilta like 4D arm or whatever attached to like a full harness backpack rig and then a red on it. And then Max McCullough was riding in that, who is a really talented filmmaker and also like a fully pro mountain biker for Rosignol. So to have both there is crucial because he needs to be able to keep up with like a racer, right, an athlete riding in the video. But he'll ride in front of him and they're pointing it backwards, and they have a remote operator, and it's going pretty sick. I don't have one of those, but I do have my cable cam system that I built, and that's. I think I still prefer that system just because you get your locked off vertical axis. When it's on a backpack, even with a stabilizer, you get some,
You're still getting a little wobble.
You get some jorble. I'd like to explore a zip line at some point once I have less regard for my forearms. But right now, the digital option's pretty sick. And I still like the gravity system. I have so many theories with all this stuff, but I think having it be gravity fed, not accelerating at like a unnatural rate of speed when you're on like flat ground is important, to be able to like be accelerating at the same rate that the rider would be accelerating at naturally going down the mountain, I think translates the coolest effect to those shots. Right now, the project in the works is wrangling that speed. So I've got this like inertia brake thing that I'm chopping up, and it's pretty much just using mountain bike parts to control the descent of it.
I love it, dude. That is it's insane.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing.
I think it's gonna work.
And this is where I love this. Where I kind of like. I love this conversation because like that's the engineer, and he was just like breaking every part of it down.
Yeah.
To like the smallest fragment that'll make the shot work.
Exactly.
Just the specific shot.
Yeah.
You're taking film to like a spiritual, universally like there's something else there that people like.
There is.
Yeah, like how I feel about music, you feel about film, and
sure.
I see that and feel that passion transcend, and it's like, for me, it's hella inspiring because film is something I've always loved, but I've never fully clicked with, and I'm starting to now the older I get. I'm 35 and I've done this for now like 4 years on and off, and I can see the message evolve in my film, but I haven't seen the visual. And that's because I still have to find my eye and what I want to create, because I also do paranormal investigating as well.
Oh, yo.
So we're filming weird things on the side, but even trying to create a story out of that that's worth watching, and it's not just footage being put on YouTube, because that's one thing I hate is like, there's a story we're going in to tell, and we're trying to like, at the end of it, trying to help. So it's like, how do you take something that a lot of people don't think even exists, first of all, and try and make it to a point where it's genuine, authentic, and tells a story? So like, for me, it's really inspiring with sports because it is very like, you have to capture that moment,
dude,
and tell that story. It's totally different than what I do. You know what I mean? So it's like, whoa.
And not necessarily more important or better. It's just
you have a spiritual aspect to it. It's almost more inspiring to watch.
It's like I call it like a compulsion. Like you don't know why you need to do this, other than the fact that you just need to do it. And the only way to do it is to just go out there and mess it up a handful of times, and then eventually you do it, and you're like, oh God, I did it. Let's do it again. And
I think it's kind of, I'm a heavy believer in manifestation.
Oh, dude.
With it, and see what you can do.
And I think even just on a personal level, I agree. I see karma and manifestation happen all the time. But I think I never try to break it down analytically, or like, if I do this, I will get this in return. It's just like on an operational basis, I try to be as sick as possible to every single person I come across. And we talked about this earlier, but I think the best way to make your life better is to make the lives of the people around you as sick as possible without overexerting yourself. But if you can bring people up and it doesn't really change anything in your life, do it. Do it. And it'll only ever come back to you. And it comes back to you in the weirdest ways that you never would have expected. But it's just a good way to live, And then, that has a big effect on manifestation, because there's more people around you doing the thing that you're interested in. So it's inevitable that opportunities are going to happen, right? Like, oh, you want a music scene in your town? Start a band. See like 6 other bands start within like a couple months. Like play a couple shows, get fired up, get them stoked on it, and watch it happen. One thing I really want to use this studio space for as soon as possible, ideally, is to like run a little film school for teenagers or even just people that want to learn how to use their stuff with authenticity at its core, and like how to pretty much a lesson in how to be yourself, because I think that's what creativity is. It can be a terrible idea, but as long as it's yours, you've created something, man.
I've made a lot of terrible ideas.
Yeah, but then you have to. Dude, I couldn't count how many terrible ideas I've had, but you can't assess an idea when it's at its inception like that. You just have to sort of commit to it and be passionate about it, and you never know where it will lead. Like some of my favorite songs I've ever written started with like the goofiest, dumbest guitar lick that I could come up with because I was intentionally trying to be dumb. And it's just like, oh, this is kind of goofy and funny. And then you never know where it's going to go. So like people get caught up in it all the time. Like, well, that's not good enough, or I couldn't do that, or like I might as well like that's not working. I'm just going to like completely restart. But if you're at the beginning, there's no way to know. You just need to go with it, and something will happen if you commit to it hard enough. I'm a firm believer that if you're in on it, regardless of where you think it's going to go, something's going to happen, and it's probably going to be cool.
We were talking about one person. I was showing Meg, have you ever seen the video of Santa Gold performing at Sasquatch? And this one guy is standing on
have seen that.
and all of a sudden he starts this huge dance party.
Yeah, dude, I've seen that.
That's the power of one person.
Yeah, man.
And I don't think people realize should not be in your vocabulary. I can do anything I want as long as I work hard enough.
Dude.
You can't not put in the effort and expect it to happen. Like you have to fail.
Yeah.
You have to. I know people nowadays just want instant gratification, but you need to fail multiple times in life. Dude. Not only to develop yourself as a person, but like as an artist, you need to make crappy songs that no one claps to at the show and is like, boo, for you to write the one song that everyone can connect to.
Yeah, it's like being an artist is such a cumulative process, right? Like you're always learning and you're always sort of changing your style. And I think that's what makes it interesting, or what keeps it fresh. If you're willing to be like, okay, I want to try this new tool, or I want to explore this thing, or have a gear goal. You know, I always have a gear goal. I'm like, okay, I need the obsession with the little tools and ways to do things is kind of what got me stoked on it in the first place, I think, you know. That's an interesting lens. I really wish I could have that, so I want to make it look this way, where it has this quality about it, and kind of chasing that has always been a bit of an obsession, and that continues for sure. Like you say, making mistakes is important. Like, oh man, I've made some soul-crushing mistakes. And eventually you get home and you sit down and you're like, okay, well that happened. What the hell do I do now, right? Like you've gone through all this stuff, and you can either sit there and grovel about it and be like, oh, my life sucks, this is terrible. Or you can be like, nah, screw that. I'm gonna use that to fire me up to make something more sick than I've ever made before. Like you just can't let it beat you. And then sure enough, I like turned around and made, like still to this day, the project that I'm the most stoked on for sure. I look at that transition and it was like 6 months from hitchhiking to Whitehorse to premiering this video in the theater in town here and being like, look what we did. This is insane. No one's ever done this before. And I think using that as fuel to your fire is huge. You have to let it just spur you on. And knowing that people are waiting for you to fail is kind of a great motivator as well. Because there's always going to be haters. As much as you want to be stoked and bringing everybody up all the time, there's going to be someone waiting for you to fall. Being open-minded about what a gift from the universe might look like I look at that snowboard trip experience, ultimately kind of a gift from the universe. Like nothing I have in my life I would have right now if I hadn't have had that.
Went through that hell.
You know, like you really kind of sometimes need to remember what rock bottom feels like, and it makes you assess why you're doing the things and how you're doing them, right? I think it's super important.
You with you. That is you finding yourself, and no one else is there to help you. And I think that gives like such a valuable strength that most people won't ever get.
I guess so. There's there's a resilience that comes from that, and I don't know, it's something I still struggle with. But like you just got to be able to put in the work and know that as well. Like I'm a sensitive guy. Like stuff sticks with me forever. You know, like your childhood and all this stuff, and being cognizant of it and not just going your macho man. No, it's just gonna make me tougher, dude. It's like no, you need to feel that fully if you want it to go away. You know, like you can't just ignore things. I think that was a really powerful reminder of that. Like I needed to really sit down and process what happened and be like, okay, why is this making me feel this way for this long, you know? Like, let's really figure out what's going on here. And I think having that sensitivity and being in touch with your own emotions and not just kicking rocks, I think is pretty important as an artist too, because you figure out how to speak to yourself, you know, and you can hear your monologue and be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? And how can I put this into something that might help someone else stop feeling this way or something? You know, music's really powerful for that. If there's like a truly emotional core at a song, I genuinely believe when you're writing it, it's coming from kind of somewhere else almost. You're like channeling this thing and it's coming out and it's already there. When you're recording it or playing it for the first time or whatever, it's like the song was already written and it's just coming out. And I think really being in touch with all of your different emotions, you know, it could be rage, it could be sadness, it could be hope, it could be whatever, you know. If you're able to let yourself feel that fully, you're going to create something that's going to resonate with it. For sure.
When you say like you want to turn this space into like teaching people to pick up an instrument and find themselves, like that is what we as creatives, and I talk about it a lot recently on the show, is it's almost our duty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we have to do that or it's not, like it's never going to continue, and then we're not going to have those free-spirited creatives down the road in the future. So
yeah, I really hope that being yourself doesn't become a lost art form, you know?
Right?
Like I think that's the most crucial thing, and I think as like cliche as it is to say, but in the age of social media and whatever, influencers and all this stuff, I think it's sort of becoming status quo that, oh, that company shoes, they wear that company clothes, you know? Like, I want to be that. I want to look like that person. I want to sound like that person. I want to be them, you know? I think that's a really slippery slope. And I think as artists, yeah, like the best, if you want to be a good influence, the best thing you can be is yourself. Like I look at all my favorite musicians and yeah, they're just so unapologetically them, sometimes to their fault, you know? Sometimes you'll watch it and be like, oh my God, Mac DeMarco just stuck a drumstick up his butt, you know? Like we got some problems. But
there's a lot of weird musicians out there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. They're just like, they themselves are like, because they're in the spotlight, I think people tend to like over glorify musicians, but musicians are usually like the most messed up people with the most messed up backgrounds, and the reason we write good music is because we're messed up.
You've got that history.
It is a weird concept, and it's like we were talking about the power of one, and there's a very valuable commodity in like musicians being able to change the world. And now film is becoming the same kind of concept, because for years film was used as like entertainment purposes.
Yeah. I think spite is a really powerful motivator, and I look at some of my favorite projects I've done, like my project with Hayden, for example. After that trip, you know, I was sort of out of spite of everything that happened. I was like, no, screw that, I'm going to make this insane thing. And anytime there would be like a moment of sort of like you're feeling like you're kind of faltering a little bit or you're losing your footing, you're like, no, we're not going there again, we're making this happen. But I think like after we made that project, I experienced like the worst burnout I've ever experienced in film, even beyond what I felt after the Alaska trip, because it's like you reach this absolute peak and everyone's so stoked, and then you kind of come back and you're like, well, what the hell do I do now?
Always trying to achieve that high,
you know, and like you've sort of peaked out. And I think what I've taken away from that is like if you can make out of love, not spite, you tend to not hit those things, and it becomes nostalgia for what you created, not a longing for you to relive it. You know, you just become grateful that you had those things and you're able to document them, and it doesn't, like, you can have some separation between your art and your life, because there was a time there where my art was my life. That was the only driving force that I had. But it's good to be diversified in your motivation. You know, chasing the next best thing with film is a good way to never want to make videos again.
I think it's kind of like with music, right?
Dude,
you can't try and write the heaviest breakdown or like the most like poppy song, and just to make it so that people will enjoy it. Like we said, at the end of the day, it comes down to like, you have to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if it's not true to you, it doesn't really matter.
No.
I can tell you right now, easily 400 songs on one of my computers that are unreleased, unfinished, and no one will ever hear.
Dude, same.
Right? And that's the thing, is like, to me, those are special. There's also songs that I keep hold that I've never released that are just for me, to get through certain times. And I'm like, if I release that, no one's gonna understand what the song is. So it's like it's my special little gem.
Yeah, man.
That I just listen to when I need to, you know. And
I
it's,
totally do the exact same thing. I think it's so sweet to have that. You know, I'll write songs for people. Like I'll have a great experience with someone, and I'll be like, I want to write a song that makes me feel the way that made me feel. You know, and yeah, 95% of the time, the only person to ever hear it will be me. But if I'm able to achieve what I wanted to achieve, it's like amazing. Now, anytime I want to have, if for some reason that person doesn't live close or I can't see them, whatever, you know, like you can tap back into that. And I think you can kind of capture it in a bottle a little bit, which is pretty cool.
It is.
Pretty cute. Yeah. Art.
With your journey as a filmmaker and creating it as a lifestyle for yourself, what's been the most difficult thing for you to separate from life and film?
To separate from life and film.
Because you were saying that at one point it was hard for you to distinguish the two. How did you work through that?
Music.
Music is what helped you?
I've always played music, but it wasn't something I took that seriously until last summer. I made that bike video back in like 2023, and then I directed my feature film thing the winter following that. Then the summer after that, I was just like, what the hell do I do? I've done these 2 back-to-back massive things, and I said, screw it. I had some money and I bought them because I just didn't have space to be loud, but I was like, screw it. I found this 80s Japanese Strat, and I was like, we're getting an electric guitar again, and I really want to start recording music, and I just wanted to see where it would go. And within like 3 or 4 months, that was like every day I'd wake up, I'd write a song, I'd record it, and then I could go off and do whatever. But that as like a central thread, that then all of the film and action sports, and I'm a big mountain biker, so having all that going on, outside of that, it's a way more consistent thread to live off of. Because the release is almost immediate. Like if you sit down to write a song, as long as you're open-minded and don't have any expectations about what you want it to be and are allowing things to just kind of flow, you can have a song pretty damn quick. To do that with a video, it takes months, and it can feel like you're just working towards nothing. So I think having an art form that's a lot more immediate made me realize it's not that I don't need to put in months of work to do this, because I also want to do film, but you can get there through different ways, right? Which was awesome, and it reminded me that I can be a creative person. I don't need to box myself into just being a filmmaker. You can do everything, you know? And then from there, I started a band, and you realize that all of the cool and interesting things that you want to build your life around are just good excuses to hang out with your friends. Same like that for music. That's almost 1,000% the reason I do it. It's a damn good excuse to just mess around with your friends. And sometimes you get something really cool out of it. And I think coming back to mountain biking after sort of learning that is like, it's the exact same thing. Whether you're going for a ride, it's such a social endeavor, or if you're trying to capture it, it's like, you should rope your friends into it and make something cool, man. It doesn't need to be this hyper serious. It can be groundbreaking, but it doesn't need to it doesn't need to proclaim that it's groundbreaking, you know? You can break ground pretty silently. Yeah, so I think that was really important, just discovering what art can be outside of pressure and realizing that's kind of like the best place to live with it. You know?
I think after putting out 2 really incredible projects back to back too, is like, because it is film and it takes a lot longer, and I feel like it takes a lot more brain power, because you're constantly having to worry about so many different little things. As where music, you're just letting the energy out. As film, you're just trying to create this feeling through every element, whether it's the narrating, if it's like, there's so many elements
you have
to
to
film.
Orchestrate it.
That it is very defeating to even get to the final results, as where music is like, it's constantly like this. It's the moment you pick up the instrument and you strum, it's gratifying, but then it just continues to go. I think it's just the creatives in us are always trying to push the hardest out of ourselves, that we kind of like need to humble ourselves and realize like, you can make something that's not to the best of your ability and it's still great. This is where I love film, because with film you have no limitations to what your film is. It's like I do action sports. I scripted a film. You can go in so many different directions, and like if you got bored, you could go into commercials for local companies. There's so much to it, and I kind of think that like you'll never be like stuck into a wall, like where other filmmakers can get stuck, where they're like, I don't have a project idea. So I've got to think of it as where you're like, I can just go with my friends, have a great day,
Dude.
and that turns into a piece of magic. And I think that's more valuable than trying to like create this perfect project.
It's like, I've sort of come to realize there's sort of two things. Just because something was hard to achieve doesn't necessarily make it more valuable. That's one big thing. That was like a realization I had after the Alaska trip, where it's like, okay, that was like as intense as you could possibly try to make something difficult for the sake of making it difficult, and it did not make it more valuable. And then also, like, in the last couple of years, I've realized, and none of my favorite projects are imitations. You know, like they're going out trying to make it seem a specific way. It's just that was already happening, and they captured it happening, and that was the way it felt as it was happening, so that's the way it's presented. You really can't fake it, especially in mountain biking. Like, it needs to be real. It needs to be something that someone's already honestly kind of doing. And then as a filmmaker, your job is to recognize when that is at a point that it's like, okay, and now we're going to make sure that everyone sees what the hell's going on, because that is so sick. And knowing when to step in, and knowing when it needs a little more time to simmer too. And then sometimes you need to cultivate it from the ground up. Like, there's not really a freeride community in town here, or at least there wasn't really one for like the last 2 years or so. But just going out and building features, like the trail I'm building, I classify it as like a freeride trail. It's got like massive jumps, these like big old growth trees everywhere, like lots of loam and all this stuff. And it's like, if you don't want it, you can make it, but it needs to be real. Like, it needs to be something that you genuinely believe in, and then people will get involved. People will see you doing it, and the momentum will be there. And once you've already sort of started it, like the guy dancing, right? Like, you just, sometimes you got to be the dude dancing on his own for a little while, and then people pick up on it, and they're like, that looks like fun. I want to do that. And then sure enough, yeah, you have like a 10-rider film crew, and you're just running around making spots all the time. And like, that can happen quick. And all my favorite crews that have sort of assembled in the last decade or so, I've realized that you can't imitate that. That was an organic thing that happened, you know? And it's real, and they're all friends, and they're just out there messing around. And trying to be like those guys would rob yourself of the opportunity of being yourself. You just need to do it, you know? Yeah.
That's a great point, because it is like, and downhill biking and like biking itself is growing more and more and more every year.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up doing BMX racing with the gate drops and stuff. Like, that's what I did growing up. And to like understand a course and be able to read it while you're riding it is also extremely tricky. So it's like, there's a lot of hard work that goes into even before the camera's rolling.
Oh,
like,
dude.
the amount of bails, the amount of hours spent riding the trail just to be able to figure out the perfect line is what you guys go through and put yourself through. Like, as I used to skateboard, and I always just like, I'm not a good skateboarder, I'm a good filmer, I'll film, but like, to throw yourself in the air, bail, get back up, do it again just because it's fun is like, that takes a whole special breed of person.
You got to really want it. You really got to believe in it. When it's working, though, it's the best. There's nothing like it, man. At least that I've found. I think there's a lot of similarities between skate and mountain biking stuff. Like, I love watching skate parts. That's probably one of my like favorite sources of inspiration for biking, is like not even bike videos anymore. It's skate clips. There's one called, I think it's Spirit Quest. There's a segment with Connor Kammerer, and that's like a massive inspiration. Once I've done my trail and everything, I want to do a video like that, man. They're using the sound of the skateboard from the clips as samples in the song as the song's happening, you know? So like, the dude will just like firecracker down a stair set, and there's your drum fill. Like, they'll build it into the song. And I think having a music studio and being a mountain biker, I look at that and I'm like, oh, I want to do that with biking, but just like, take it a completely different direction. Yeah, I think skating probably gave birth to a lot of the attitude of the core mountain bikers of today's generation. They
like
go back.
This is a hidden gem. Revelstoke is just beautiful inside and out. I realize there's so much more here.
Man. I know it's cliche, but the people are 1000% the reason this place is as sick as it is. I'm honestly kind of over the ski thing. Like, I know that's why everyone comes here, but it's like, it's cool. It's a weird battle of expectations, though, you know? People will hype it up as being one thing, and you come in and you want it to deliver on that, but it's It's not real. It's not reality. You're almost expected to do just as much marketing as you are creative film projects, because a lot of the time that's what pays the bills, right? And I know some people will disagree on this, but I think a lot of this sort of action sports marketing is kind of built on lies, man. Like the expectation that you're going to go to a resort and you're going to get that insane pow day and you're going to score whatever conditions. It's like, don't sell it on that, man. Sell it on the dude you're going to meet on the chairlift that's going to make your day and buy you a beer after. That's, I think, the real resource that this town has to offer is just a plethora of insanely sick people who are willing to go out of their way to make your day awesome. And I think it's a missed opportunity to not use that. Like, that's the marketing right there. Like, you can walk downtown and run into just the craziest, sickest people with the wildest stories that are just homies. That's what makes this place sick.
It's awesome. What do you think would be the first stepping stone? Because you are extremely successful for your young age, and I think that is an inspiring factor for the younger generation who may have a hard time trying to find their footing as where they want to be in a world that is very, you have to follow the trend.
Just make it, and just make it. Don't worry if it's bad. It's going to be kind of bad. Make it anyways, and don't ever apologize for making it. No disclaimers. Like, be unapologetically yourself every time, all the time. You just need to go out with your friends. If it's on the filming side, take a crappy camera. Don't worry about what you're shooting on. That's like the last thing you need to worry about. And make it real. Find some magic. When you come home and edit it, throw your headphones on, find a song you like and put it together. And if it speaks to you, put it out and never apologize for it. But know that you can probably make something better next time. And just keep finding little ways to make it interesting. Never let it get boring, you know? Like, it's easy to fall into patterns of how you like to create something, but being willing to challenge that all the time is really important. That keeps it interesting. After a certain point, you got to be flexible because you're going to change, but the only way to do it is to do it. So just go do it.
Logan, I want to thank you so much for doing this, bro.
Dude,
there was an amazing conversation and so many, like I say, the magic moments, which is like what I'm always looking for, right? So sick. I want to thank you for doing this and having us here.
Hell yeah, man.
And we'll catch you guys next time.